Hello, and welcome to Awaken, where we share insights to the connection between science and spirituality for self-discovery, joy, and freedom. I am your host and spiritual coach, Stephanie Rouch, and today it is my pleasure to introduce you to Jennie Lee. Jennie is a Nautilus Award-winning author of 3 books: Spark Change, 108 Provocative Questions for Spiritual Evolution; True Yoga, Practicing with the Yoga Sutras for Happiness and Spiritual Fulfillment; and Breathing Love, Meditation in Action. And as a certified therapist, yoga therapist, and spiritual coach for the past 26 years, Jennie has counseled clients all over the world in the process of connecting to their soul wisdom and creative self-expression. She's also the founder and director of the Asir Writer and Artist Residency in Italy. Welcome, Jennie. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Stephanie. It's great to be with you. And I know that an Italian word through you, it's essere, and essere means to be in Italian.
So, Jennie, tell us about your personal connection to inquiry and awakening.
So, as a yoga therapist, I have found that one of the greatest tools for helping people to come to greater self-understanding is through depthful questions. So, over the several decades that I've been counseling clients, I have really tried to perfect my inquiry questions, because sometimes I find that we don't ask quite the right question. And so it's about fine-tuning the questions that we're asking our clients, but also ourselves. And my third book, the first one that you mentioned that won the Nautilus Award, it's called Spark Change, is a compilation of questions in 12 categories of the process of change, which reflect a lot of the types of inquiries that I've done with clients over the years and have found to be really effective when we step onto this path of trying to evolve, to improve, to make conscious change. And the more we can do that intentionally, the happier I believe that we can be. And I just find that working with questions, which I know we're going to, really get into today, is so powerful. And I'll say that self-inquiry as a spiritual practice, to me, is the other side of the coin of meditation. So to me, those two practices are the most essential for our growth as individuals. We need the space in silence where we are not processing intellectually anything, and we're really going into that deep state of stillness that the Yoga Sutras talk about as the state of meditation, that state of deep being. And then we need this other side where we are utilizing our mind and our intuition to analyze the state of our lives, the state of our consciousness, and how we can engage at a deeper level to move forward in our lives.
Beautiful. So I just want to highlight that. So you're saying these 2 practices are really essential for our spiritual evolution: meditation, or being in stillness, and then also self-inquiry, that is kind of combining intuition with our analytical mind. So it's that openness. And these help us with awakening our consciousness. And I want to dive into this concept of awakening our consciousness. Can you tell us, in your experience and perspective, what does that really mean?
I think it can mean different things. I mean, you hear people talking about having spiritual awakenings when, they might feel a surge of energy move up the spine, or they might have a sudden epiphany about something. And those are great. In my experience, they don't last that long. They're sort of a flash and then they're gone, and they're not necessarily catalysts for grounded change. And I'm a very pragmatic sort of individual. I'm a pragmatic teacher. I'm looking for those tools that can help people make what I would call really grounded change. And so to awaken our consciousness means, to me, means to start to choose beliefs which are in line with our highest values, whether they are beliefs that we grew up with or not, because many people, in my experience, have sectors of beliefs that were sort of instilled from either early experience, family, culture, etc., that aren't necessarily in line with their highest values. So this, what we're talking about is awakening of consciousness, is getting really clear about what are my beliefs, what are my values, are they in line with one another, and how do I change them if they're not in harmony with one another.
Mm.
So the awakening of consciousness, going back to, I said it's a couple of things. When I'm in process with a client, sometimes that question that I might drop in after I hear them sort of talking story, as the Hawaiians say, and they're all over the map with things. And then I ask them a pointed question. It's like I watch all the experiences, the sort of 360-degree experiences of their lives, come into a very specific point of reference where a certain understanding drops in that they hadn't had before about why they're operating the way that they're operating, or why they're seeing the world and the experience that's in front of them in the way that they are. And it's like watching a light bulb go on in an individual. And it's really profound and powerful. And it's why I love the work that I do, because I've seen it many, many times over the years. And that's when I know, like, there's this spark of awakening that's happened. And I think that overall, when we talk about evolution or the evolution of consciousness, the awakening of consciousness, we're looking for these sparks to happen more often and more consistently, and to take hold in our lives in terms of how we then embody them and act upon them. Because awareness alone is not enough. We have to have awareness with action.
Absolutely. And what you're describing sounds like a deeply personal journey, because we all do have our own frames of reference that we're born into and our own perspectives and life experience. And yet I'm hearing there is some consistency with what awakening could mean for the collective. And I'm wondering if you can tease apart for us what's the where's the line between what's really personal for someone and what may be a shared experience for people in their awakening process?
Well, I think everything that is deeply personal for us is the catalyst for connection with others, because at a fundamental level, humans are all the same. We have the same needs, we have the same emotions, we have the same general inner makeup. At a cellular level, we all want love, we want recognition, we want understanding, we want empathy, we want connection and belonging, and these things that transcend culture or upbringing or anything else are just what connect us. And so when we share something, a personal awareness that we've had, it's, I think of it from a writing standpoint. When I share a personal story, it is often the window through which someone else can see something about their experience through that very personal sharing that I've offered. And in a therapeutic setting, I mean, I am certainly there in service to my client. I'm not there to talk about my story, but there are moments when I can offer something very personal that can illustrate the theme of what we might be talking about at a philosophical level. And so I think the personal is the doorway to that greater connection with one another. And once we start recognizing that anything we're going through, everyone else is going through too at some level, and that anything that we do affects the collective at some level as well, because we are all part of one consciousness. We're all part of one energetic system. And so we can't separate the two.
That is such a good point. And that is really a point too that I think helps me or empaths or people who are really giving feel some sense of permission that it's good to do this internal work and take care of yourself, because anything you do to yourself, for good or for bad, will affect others. I'm wondering if you're willing to comment on that.
Well, absolutely. I would say that when we talk about inner practices, or I would call them sadhana, spiritual practice, where we are trying to tap into that highest, most glorious inner self, our spiritual self, that is not selfish. It is for the greater good, because the more we awaken, we can't awaken anyone else. Okay, we just can't. It is a very internal process. We can be there to walk with them. We can share things that we've experienced along the way. We can offer philosophical teachings, but until the dots connect inside of someone else, all we are is that guide. And so the the journey through our individual growth does contribute. It is the only contributing thing that we can do to elevate the mass consciousness, right? Because if we can't change others, we can only change ourselves. But as we change ourselves, and that's why any kind of spiritual practice is never selfish, as we change ourselves, we are elevating the collective. Because we become more loving, we become more giving at a true level. So, not giving from that egoic standpoint where it's actually to feed something within us that is maybe in not in its fully healthy state, but we're giving from the fullness of knowing ourselves as spirit and as unlimited beings.
Mm, wow. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's so important for this audience, because we can feel like, but society's telling me I need to do and make sure that fires are cleared and make sure everyone else is okay. But really having that perspective that it's sacred and honorable to take care of yourself is, I think, going to be a relief and give that permission to a lot of people that it's good to step forward.
Well, just on a very personal and practical level, I mean, if I don't do my morning meditation, I'm just not as pleasant of a human being to my husband and the people around me. I need that time in stillness to connect to God, to my prayers, to my the love in my heart, to all of my highest ideals. That time is so sacred because it is what grounds me into the sort of human being that I want to walk in the world being. And so yeah, it's just that simple. It has to happen.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And to dive in a little bit deeper to some of the inquiry you're talking about, how do you know what question is the right question?
Yeah, so I talk about that a little bit in my book, Spark Change. So we are constantly asking questions in our minds, whether we're aware of it or not. There's sort of this inner dialogue that happens. And if you start to watch your thoughts enough, you'll see how you're doing sort of a question and answer thing within your own mind all the time. And we go around in loops, and it's often something pretty futile, like, why did he say that? Or why did that person do that? And for me, the question why is often not very helpful, because one of the first sort of points in growth for me is acceptance. And from the yoga teachings, that would be the quality of santosha, or contentment, acceptance of the situation as it is right now. That doesn't mean that we're not going to work towards change, because of course we are, but we have to say, this is what is. This is how that person reacted. This is the situation in front of me that I have to deal with. Then we can get to the questions, which are actually more helpful. So the question that wasn't helpful is, why is this happening? I don't know. It's happening. Why are we going to spend time asking why? Let's get to what is the most loving way that I can show up with this situation? Or what is this person reflecting to me about myself? And how do I need to grow through my communication with this person? We can play with a lot of different kinds of questions with the challenge at hand, whatever that might be, whether it's interpersonal or whether it's situational or, whatever it might be. Playing with our questions often will get us to our answers very fast. Once we land on what I call the right question, it's almost instantaneous because it is one of those epiphanal moments where we just take responsibility for engaging with whatever is happening at a different level. We start to self-reflect and see how we're a part of the situation. Whether, we often feel like things happen to us, and they do. Things happen to us, and we have the capacity to respond to anything that's happening to us or around us. And that's where we hold the control. And so, this process of looking at the questions that we're asking subconsciously in our minds, really making those more aware, and then starting to play with them and alter them and look at the questions from different perspectives can just be really powerful and lead us to a lot of new insights.
Mm. For someone who's starting to explore this idea, what what will be some of the feelings that they're having, or how will they know that they're getting warmer to that right question?
That's a good question. Good question. Um, how will they know if they're getting warmer to the right question? Well, I think it's when we start to feel more curious. Like it's almost like we're not just beating our head against a wall. The why question is often, it feels like beating our head against a wall. There's no way out of it. It just is. But when we lock on or we're getting close to a question that is one that will facilitate more inner growth, it's like there's room to breathe again. There's some room to move. We can kind of walk around in it and look at things from slightly different angles. And there's a curiosity that kind of starts to bubble for me, and I don't always get the answer right away. A moment ago I said oftentimes there will kind of be that epiphany when you get the right question, but sometimes not. Sometimes it's more just this feeling of sort of spaciousness, like, oh yeah, I want to sit with that a little bit more. I want to journal about that. There's something here, like it's fertile ground.
Mm. I love that. So it's almost like I'm feeling this sense that the why questions might be more blame, shame. Like if I'm looking for a why question, then it's someone's fault, or there's not really a way for me to resolve it easily, versus the self-inquiry questions give this sense of I have options, is is what
I
I'm
have
feeling.
options and I'm taking accountability for my capacity to respond to this circumstance. And I get to choose, even if something horrific has happened to me, I get to choose how I respond to it, how I live with it and hold it inside my mind
Mm.
and heart, and how I use it as a stepping stone for my spiritual growth.
Awesome. Awesome. I am in this moment reminded of some of Byron Katie's talks where she talks about using a self-inquiry practice where it helped her transition from something terrible is going to happen to something wonderful is happening to me. And that like one was a spiral into more tightness and one's a spiral into more openness.
Yeah,
Yeah.
expansion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great, great. So we've talked about your book, Spark Change 108 Provocative Questions for Spiritual Evolution. And just in this discussion, I imagine I would love to read it. I imagine a lot of audience members are going to be really interested to sink their teeth into this. So can you tell us what kind of experience can readers expect when they go out and get this book?
Yeah, I love this book because it's one that you can just keep in your purse or handbag or by your bedside and open up randomly to any page. And you can grab a question, and then there's a short paragraph underneath the question that fleshes it out a little bit, gives you a little bit more guidance how to engage with the question. So, this book came about, as I said, from all the years that I've done inquiry with my yoga therapy clients and spiritual coaching clients. And they're questions that I have found to be these sort of expansive questions that we're talking about, where people don't have an immediate answer, but they feel a sense of excitement in the exploration of them. And the book is laid out in 12 sections. It is a very conscious trajectory of change that it takes you through. So you could read it cover to cover. There is a methodology to it, but you don't have to. A lot of people just love to dip in and grab a chapter, let's say, on beliefs. There's a section on beliefs. And so if you're working with that and you're kind of one of the questions that I off the top of my head is, are my beliefs helping or hurting me? And so that's a juicy one to kind of look at. Like, okay, I have this belief that I don't know, I'll never be able to write a novel. And I'm a nonfiction writer. I don't think I can write a novel. Well, that's just limiting me. That's hurting me. Why not? If other people can write novels, I can write a novel. So why am I going to hold on to that belief? So we can start to question ourselves and why we're holding certain beliefs. So that's just one example. But I think what people can find there are a lot of prompts to start to expand and awaken their consciousness, to use the language of this series. It really is what it's all about. And a gift of coaching in a book form, I guess I would say.
Great, great. Well, I would love if we can go even just a little deeper for a slight taste for audience members. If you're willing to walk us through an inquiry practice that you like to use with yourself or your clients that audience members can engage in right now.
Sure. Let's see. This is one of my favorites. Think of something that you would really love to do in the next couple of years. Something that maybe feels a little bit inaccessible right now. I mentioned, writing a novel or something like that. Maybe it's being able to fly first class or find a partner or who knows what. But there's something that you hold in your heart that you really want to experience. And then imagine that you are there. You have done this thing.
Mm.
What is the quality that you need to develop now
Mm.
to help you get there?
Mm.
Maybe it's courage.
Mm.
Maybe it's self-confidence. Maybe it's willingness. Maybe it's, I don't know. There's many different qualities, but often we can, when we look forward at something that we really hold dear and would love to accomplish or experience, and then we look at where we are now, we can identify how we feel. Oh, I don't feel capable. I don't feel confident to do that. Okay, maybe the quality is just engaging, taking a step towards learning something new. Maybe it's a skill set that you need to develop, or maybe it's just that willingness to try, um, to put yourself out there in a different way, or to have a conversation that has felt really difficult. So, what is the quality? And then, we all have, I the Bhagavad Gita, which is one of the classic texts within yoga philosophy, talks about 26 soul qualities. We all have them. They're all innate in us. We don't have to go out and get them. They're there, but we have to bring them forward. We have to live into them. And so I like to think about which soul qualities I'm not fully embodying at a juncture where I feel like, oh, I'm here, but I want to be over there. Okay, well, what's that quality that I need to get me over there?
Love that. Love that. It's bringing about that innate quality that's already in us. So that feels like it can either be just feeding it. And I love that visual of seeing ourselves already there. And then as you were talking, I got the visual of Michelangelo, how people always talk about the statue that Michelangelo is, I think it was Michelangelo. Oh, the statue is already in the stone. I just had to free it from the stone. It's like letting go of those layers over top that are kind of blocking whatever that
Yeah.
quality is.
That is such a great point, and thank you for saying that, Stephanie, because that is part of the work that is super important. So, identifying the quality that we need to bring forward more is part of it, but looking at what needs to get chipped away is also part of it as well. So, like in the quality of willingness, let's say, we have to look at all of our resistances. Where are we unwilling? And then that might take us into kind of an audit of our values, because I've hit some resistance in some of my work recently, and I've had to really look at, why am I feeling this resistance? This is purportedly work that is aligned with, what I've been doing in the world. Why am I feeling resistance with it? And what I did when I did what I'm calling an audit of values, it's like, okay, what are my top 5 values right now? We have core values that transcend time and times of our lives and different circumstances. I mean, for me, being a loving individual is baseline core value. But right now, the freedom of movement, expression, time, everything is like highest value. And so this other activity, I think, was going to feel constraining to me. And so when I was able to identify that my value had shifted from the, I guess, production or offering that it was that I value as well, but that there's a higher value that's come in right now for me, which is the sense of freedom, which
Mm.
this would not quite meet, then I can see why there's a resistance. So then the chipping away, going back to your metaphor of the sculptor, I can just, that resistance has fallen away. So now some space has opened, and I can let that other thing go, but I can open the door to something that feels more freeing.
Mm. I love that. And that's so good because it's not just the like quote unquote negative things to let go of, but sometimes what's good can be released to make room for the great, is what I'm hearing from you.
Yeah. Sometimes there's good, and then there's even better.
Yeah, great. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Jennie, for your time. And I'm wondering if you'd be willing to tell us about your free gift that you're offering to the audience and how they can stay connected with you.
Sure. It's a meditation for connecting to your intuition. I work with clients a lot on developing that quality of intuition that we all have. It's definitely one of those innate qualities that we need to learn to trust and embody more. And it's such a great guide. So the meditation is to connect you to that. You can get it on my website by signing up. On the website for that. And then you'll get a series actually of other guided meditations as well.
Fantastic. And we will include that link for everybody here. And then also please check out Spark Change 108 Provocative Questions for Spiritual Evolution. Thank you so much, Jennie, for your time. Appreciate this wonderful perspective on inquiry.
Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Thank you for tuning in to this amazing interview as part of our Awaken series. I hope you found value. Check out the rest of the interviews on Awaken. Keep tuning in, and please subscribe to Paradigm Expansions to stay in touch, where we are doing more events like this, and we are all about dropping in to your heart, to your true self, to really, truly love your life. Thank you for joining. See you on the next video.